I wanted to share with you another simple start that I use. And as I go through this, you'll see different places where I probably could have stopped. But I kept going kind of just to show you that it's okay to keep going on a painting. And if you get to the end and you think, I probably should have stopped like 5 minutes ago, that's okay. You can always paint over it. So there are places in here where I really loved it, but I kept going. So it's just a matter to show you that there are, I don't think there's really any mistakes when it comes to your paintings, because you can always go back. So right here what I'm doing is I'm just using different types of charcoal. So I'm using a pencil. I'm actually writing some intention words in there. I've used a thicker charcoal. By the way, I drink a lot of water when I paint. I think hydration is key. So you'll see me over there drinking water a lot of times throughout my videos, and I put them in pretty cups and pretty glasses. There I'm bringing out some Caran d'Ache, and I'm enjoying just adding some color. Scribbling, playing, moving around the canvas. This is the play stage where I'm just picking out colors that I think are pretty and not really worrying about what I'm doing. I did use some intention when I did my initial black lines to kind of give it some composition. I try to never really put anything right smack in the middle of a canvas. I think the eye a lot of times likes to have a little chaos. There I'm using my non-dominant hand to kind of just be a little more free in what I'm doing. Again, I'm using the non-dominant hand, and sometimes this just frees you up if you feel like you're freezing up on your artwork. Just feel free to grab, something, a thick and a thin brushes. It's good to have different thicknesses in your work. But as you can see, I'm right now just using a lot of the same thickness. I'm grabbing some, again, some more pencils and just scribbling. Here I'm adding water. A lot of the utensils that I use are water soluble, which means that they will dissolve in the water. So I'm rubbing the wet brush over the charcoal, which is bringing in a beautiful black color. You'll see a lot of times through my art, I do a dance between light and dark. And this is an area that I continue to work with because I think the eye loves to have the balance between the light and the dark. And sometimes I tend to forget to have the lights and the darks, but I find that the artwork that I sell the quickest and the most appealing art to me does have that balance between the light and the dark. Here I'm applying paint, Artesia paint, right from the tube. There is a richness in squirting paint out from the tube. A lot of times in a painting I will put the paint out on a palette and mix it and blend the colors together, but other times I just use paint right out of the tube to just play on the canvas. This is the bottom stage, so at this point pretty much anything goes. I'm doing this as two paintings that could go together or they could stand alone. A lot of times you could have a triptych, which is 3 paintings. You can do a series like this. I just found, since these were small canvases, and a lot of times I do large canvases, that having 2 together like this was a little bit more fun. So you can see me still just, switching around between, now I'm using a thin paintbrush, bringing in lights and darks, and at this point everything is pretty much the same thickness on there. You'll see a couple blobs where I did the paint where things are a little bit thicker. I am still just working with different strokes of paint. Still in the play stage, not really paying a lot of attention to any composition. I do still try to watch that I don't add color or lines in the middle. Sometimes I do, and I will go back and, like that blue line right there, smack in the middle on the canvas. So it's best to break that up. When you have something in the middle, the eye doesn't tend to like it as much. Or I guess let me say that in a different way. A lot of times the eye likes it better when it's off-centered. It's just, you know, if you go to art gallery or if you look at people's art, take a look at it and see what you think about when you see paintings where something is off-center, or just kind of something fun about it. Adding, balancing again, looks like I put a face on that one. Adding in some color, balancing again back and forth between the light and the dark. Now I'm scratching, doing some sgraffito they call it, just scratching in some lines into the wet paint. Kind of adds interest. I love interest in a painting. I think sometimes the more interest that is added to a painting makes it more fun to look at. Gives your eye, you know, some places to go. One thing I do watch is when I have a painting like this that's so fun and free-flowing, I try not to, a lot of times, have such perfection, like that one orange circle there. It's, I find that I like my art better when, if it's kind of loose like this, to keep it loose. Now I'm adding an awful lot to this painting. At some point I could have stopped, but for the sake of this video, I just wanted to keep going to just see about the lights and the darks and keep playing. But at any point, you can go off in a direction and end a painting when you think it's done. I think that's the hardest part as an artist, is to know when a painting is done. At this point, I could have let it dry and then gone in again, because a lot of times adding the different colors, and here again, I had everything kind of muted down, and now I'm adding some more brightness. But having a lot of chaos on the canvas, to me, is part of what I like to do. So I'm adding that. There's not a lot of space on here to let the eye rest, and sometimes going back in and adding white at this point, letting it completely dry, then adding in some white paint or white gesso is a lot of fun. It kind of gives some spacing in there. So you'll see me again, now I'm adding some more dark. The dramaticness of the dark adds a lot of interest. And again, at this point, I could have stopped the painting. It would have been perfectly fine to stop at this point, maybe added a couple more touches, but at this point I could have stopped because it's got some interest in it. But for the sake of the video, I'm going to keep going. Now I'm bringing in some white, mushing in again, balancing back and forth between the muting the paint and colors together, bringing in some darkness. Now I'm adding a little bit more contrast there. So it's just a balance back and forth. It's kind of like a playing with, you know, with the art, and it doesn't hurt to do some process like this on paper as opposed to canvas. A lot of times you get feeling a very precious feeling with canvas, and you don't tend to play as much. How I feel is I can always go in on a canvas and add a lot of white gesso and bring it back to almost the original state there. So I don't mind playing. I don't mind adding different strokes that maybe I might not have liked. Okay, here's some examples of paintings that I've done where I've done the start and then I've added painting on top. You can see some of them where I've gone back in and put more white in around the edges. I really watched the balance between the darks and the lights. This was actually done on paper. And I think that the balance of the small strokes, the light strokes, and the dark and the light really adds a lot of interest.